when I got on the SHBG protocol, it felt like I got on cycle for the first time.
But yeah, dude. So how long have we known each other? I think I started talking to you. It had to have been close to a year ago, probably at least.
Yeah, I'm gonna go under 2 years, just under 2 years, something like that
Yeah.
would be my guess.
And you've kind of expanded your presence online with this SHBG stuff.
Yep. I started the deliberate effort of putting the work online that I was doing in the background for the last 4 years in 2025. That's when I decided I was going to put it out. So I started bodybuilding in 2022, and I had been working, developing this sort of stuff. And then 2025 was the year that I decided, I actually want to put it out there. I'm talking with people about it anyway, so let's, put it on YouTube and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you have a super unique approach. Obviously, we'll talk about kind of what you said, your origin story and where you started. But what's intriguing to me about the way that you do things is that you kind of recognize that everybody's just hammering one pathway to growth, and it might not be the optimal way for everybody. And it seems like a lot of guys are kind of burning out that pathway. And if you're not genetically equipped to, go through just the androgen receptor, there's multiple ways to growth. And kind of like the way that what it's akin to in training is like, for training, we have like maximal load, we have stretch, we have density, we have like frequency, all these different pathways for hypertrophy.
Mm.
And so most people are just doing, the maximal loading version for hypertrophy as far as like using androgens go, where they're just taking as much testosterone as possible. The whole idea is like get your SHBG down as low as possible so you have as much free testosterone as possible.
Right.
And the prevailing sentiment is that the more free testosterone you have, the better. SHBG is evil and like destroys your androgens. Keep estrogen as low as possible without like dying or feeling like shit. And so you have a very unique approach, and it's yielded you some massive benefits that you didn't get from just going the androgen way. And it's been quite a ride. So tell me about, or just tell whoever's watching about, I guess kind of where you started and what set you up for, getting into this stuff.
So you set me up perfect about the keep free testosterone as high as possible and estrogen as low as possible. These are trends that we see. They come in cycles, pun intended, but this is popular for a while, then people start doing this. And for a while, it was when AIs came out in like the late 90s, early 2000s, it was nuke your estrogen because that's a female hormone. We don't need it. Then as people learn more, anecdotally, they realize they feel like shit and they grow better. And how come I grew better on the cycle that I got gyno, but now that I'm, crushing my E2, I don't grow as much. So we figured those things out anecdotally, and there ends up being an explanation for it. Free testosterone, it's something you actually do want to prioritize when you're a natural, and you can only produce that 1,000 nanogram per deciliter total test if you're at the genetic elite. So in that case, yes, you want to make as much of it free as possible. But people don't know what SHBG does. They say it's a transport protein. It holds on to your testosterone and carries it throughout the body. It delivers it throughout the body, but nobody tells you what happens after that. Okay, what does it happen when it gets there? SHBG delivers testosterone to tissues in the body. Then what? Basically, it's there is a separate receptor for SHBG. You talked about different pathways and how people want to maximize different pathways of muscle growth, like mechanical tension as a stimulus, caloric surplus, and nutrient signaled reasons to activate mTOR, which grows muscle. So there's food, lifting, and androgens. Those are three pathways right there. But within that androgen pathway or that hormonal pathway, there is another thing too. SHBG actually has what you could call its own receptor. It's technically called the SHBG receptor complex. And we don't have to get into what it is and how it works, but it is a known thing like confirmed that it exists. And this brings me to the origin story of me is I've kind of just always been a person, whatever I'm into, I enthrall myself in it, and like that becomes my only thing. So when I started uh, optimizing my health hormones and started TRT in 2022, that's when I also started lifting for the first time. And I started off just on the same way everyone does, like on testosterone, 175 milligrams. And I could only get, you know, I don't want to say I could only get so far, but basically I actually responded really good. But most people know or seem to report there is a point where plateaus happen, and um, you don't just infinitely keep responding the way that you do compared to when you first start, when you're not only a newbie to steroids, you got your newbie steroid gains. But for me, in my case, I had my newbie gains like for actually lifting for the first time, like the exact way you're not supposed to do it. But for me, they were wrapped into one. Like I was working 110 hours a week for nearly a decade on what I was doing before. So when that ended, I was just like, I just need something to do. And yeah, that's how I got into bodybuilding. And I throw myself into everything. I heard this idea originally through Vigorous Steve, actually for the first time, that SHBG is important, actually, in that sometimes you can get it crushed too low. And he talked about that old idea that, you know, free testosterone is all that you want. But he explained that SHBG receptor complex pathway and, you know, ways to not crush your SHBG as much. It's never ways to like actually raise it like effectively besides coming off. That's the only way. You have to actually stop, which is, you know, you're not going to get as much progress when you stop taking stuff. Yeah. What do you think? Where do you,
So
do you want me to hit next?
so when you first discovered this, you had gotten kind of like, you got your newbie gains from lifting and, you know, using testosterone right off the bat. And basically you had sort of like hit this wall where you were like, you know, just like anybody else, you kind of like adapted and you weren't really growing anymore. And so that was when you discovered the SHBG thing. You started thinking about it and you started like looking into that as a possible solution.
It wasn't even intentional. It was accidental. It was just actually because of whatever I'm into, I'm looking up everything, every aspect about it, no matter what. And this is why it was kind of right. I was at the right place at the right time in the wrong body, because I found out my body actually might have a genetic aromatase deficiency, which means I don't produce a lot of estradiol when I'm on testosterone. Like,
so potentially that's one of the reasons that you had stalled.
yeah, I wouldn't call it a stall per se. I was still making progress, but like not like the beginning, obviously.
Of course.
And my estradiol wouldn't, to get it over 25 on like 300 test, I had to go up to 630 test with HCG, with DHEA and pregnenolone. And the highest I ever got it to was 45. So that's like not low. You know, that's not, I don't think 45 was the limiting factor there.
So you were getting blood work done, and your estradiol was relatively low.
Yeah.
And so did you think like, oh, hey, this might, you know, maybe if I increase my estradiol, maybe then I'll start growing at a faster rate? Was that kind of your thought process?
My thought process was get injectable estradiol, not to grow faster, but because I had to take such a high dose of testosterone to have that level of estradiol at all. Like on a normal dose of test, my estrogen was low. So I'm like, what happens if
this is a problem I have to correct no matter what?
Right. And I did. And then I'm like, well, since I'm already on estradiol, one of the main reasons of test people say is like you need a testosterone base because you need the estradiol it converts into.
Right, using men need hormone.
Yeah, men need estradiol too. And I'm like, I wonder what would happen now that I'm manually backfilling my estradiol through this injectable estradiol valerate, if I ran nandrolone only by itself. And I then did that. I switched from running 630 test, 700 nandrolone, which is a lot, to 1,000 nandrolone plus estradiol. So
What
my
happened-
actual
what happened then?
weekly, that's when I got Newbie Gains version 2.0. It
Now, did
felt,
you attribute that like initially when that happened? Well, sorry, first of all, let me cut you off. Like, how much? What would you say like Newbie Gains 2.0? Like, did you just like gain like 20 pounds of muscle? Like, what did that look like?
so I track data a lot. Like I'm a nerd like that, and I do blood work and stuff sometimes on a couple times a month basis if I'm just tracking one marker or something. And in this case, SHBG, estradiol, and other things happen to be one of those. And I noticed when I switched from testosterone to nandrolone, not much in the first week, not much in the second, but then week 3, I noticed, like I got my first planal back and my SHBG jumped up, and I'm like, wow, that's weird. It's never gone up. It's only gone down steadily, and I don't recall the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I went from like an 8 SHBG to a 14 or something.
Now,
Like
when that happened, you had like obviously you had also seen performance or muscle growth at the same time, and that's when you were like, oh, maybe there's
That's
something.
right. That's what I was getting to, is like after that transition, I noticed things started rocketing back up again exponentially, because like these are long esters and stuff. It wasn't like in a span of 1 week, night and day. But by that second week, I could tell something different was happening here for me.
So, did you initially attribute that to just increased estrogen?
No, because actually at first I had used extra estrogen on top of the testosterone too, because I aromatized so little. I was like,
And nothing was happening. It was when you took out the test
yeah,
and the HBG went up. So the difference, like the variable that changed was SHBG, and that's what you correlated with all that growth you had.
right. And even better than that, the last 3.5 years, I've set up controlled experiments for this with myself and many other people now at this point. Like I've been working behind the scenes on this, and this is now me bringing it out. But by every metric you measure by which androgens are having their beneficial effects that you want, all of them are increased now.
So the idea is that once the, I guess, androgen, like, or testosterone, whatever you want to call it, like DHT sort of pathway is like maxed out or burned out or whatever you want to call it, then you increase SHBG, and now you're basically attacking both pathways because you're still getting the anabolic effect from the nandrolone or from whatever drug you're using, but then now also because you've taken the testosterone or the DHT out, now you can produce SHBG again, and now the SHBG is also doing its job. So you're kind of getting like a double hit of whatever gene transcription or anabolism.
Exactly. Yeah. And I didn't connect that piece and that understanding of why exactly my SHBG went up until after, when I looked at why that might happen. And then I set up experiments over the last years to test it.
What's funny about it to me, sorry, go ahead.
The reason is different steroids have different binding affinities to SHBG. Like
Right.
People might have heard like testosterone and DHT bind to SHBG much more than estradiol, for example. The same is true with DHT, testosterone, primo, and nandrolone and tren or whatever. They all have different binding affinities to SHBG.
But it's
DHT
also that, but
is the highest.
Doesn't DHT also reduce the production of SHBG?
All androgens do, actually. So they all are suppressing the production, no matter what. But that's not the only thing lowering it. It's also how fast you consume it and sequester SHBG up. So
Okay, so why then take out the testosterone? Is that because we're trying to? I know a little bit about this because we've talked about it a lot. But is the idea then, because DHT is not anabolic, So we're basically freeing up SHBG from, DHT, taking it all and then basically more or less wasting it,
Mhm.
and then allowing the SHBG to, take an actual anabolic and then transport it and do its SHBG thing with that instead of wasting it on DHT.
It's that just DHT ends up depleting the level of SHBG much faster, and you end up having a lower SHBG when you're running a testosterone base compared to some of these other androgens that I've tested. Nandrolone is one, dihydroboldenone is another.
So they don't
Actually,
suppress SHBG as much as DHT.
right, much
But they're still
many
able
fold
to be
less.
used by it to do the
Correct,
attack of the SHBG receptor.
correct.
Okay. And what's funny about this and what's interesting about this whole protocol to me is like you see guys all the time talking about, what ratio do I run my test and primo at or my test and equipoise at to not crash my estrogen? And the people are always worried about like, oh, I don't know if my estrogen's too low or it's too high, or I'm going to run it at 2-to-1 or 1-to-1. And people are always trying to they're always trying to thread this needle to make sure they have like the right amount of estrogen, right? By using the test, like trying to do this balancing act when it's dynamic anyways.
Yeah.
So it's just so funny to me, like nobody's really thought of this, like, hey, instead of using test as this like pro-hormone base, why don't you just inject the estrogen and then you know exactly where your level's at all the time, and then you don't have to worry about the aromatase inhibition effect of primo or equipoise or whatever it is. You could run as much primo or equipoise as you want, and your estrogen will always be the perfect optimal number.
Yep.
So it seems so simple when I say it like that, but people seem to be very averse to the idea of injecting estrogen for some reason, even though they know they need it, right?
Right.
Like, we'll just use testosterone as a base. Everyone needs a test base. And it's like they just parrot this thing. They're just like, it's just one of these whole like, this is the way we've always done it. Don't question it. You're you're crazy to inject estrogen kind of thing. But it makes perfect sense to me, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you for seeing it like that too. Because, it's like I said in the beginning, these things come in trends and they go in waves, and people repeat stuff, and, it gradually changes over the years. It used to be that with men don't need estrogen, you crush it with an AI. Then we're realizing, oh shit, my dick doesn't work when we do that.
Well, and also like that's how you produce IGF-1, right? Like when your estradiol is low, you can't produce as much IGF-1. So your growth hormone isn't as powerful.
Right. Yeah. So it's that. And this cycle design is a dream for anybody who has hair loss and DHT related issues, but also people who have issues dialing in their E2. Because literally the E2 dose that you inject, that's the level of E2 you're going to stay. You take Primo on top of it, you take EQ on top of it, hell, you even take Letrozole on top of it. Not that you would. It won't affect your E2 because those drugs lower E2 by changing how much the pro-drug testosterone converts into E2.
Sure.
They don't just have this magical ability to vanish E2 into thin air.
So what's an optimal level of E2 that you like to stay at?
About 65 to, I don't know, I'm not decided yet. I've been playing around with it. Like I was first running around like 112, and then I was running it at like, 66.5, 70.1 or numbers I remember. But most of what I am doing now isn't because it's what I like. It's for experimentation purposes. But 65-ish feels good for me.
So it feels good, like your IGF-1's decent.
585.
Water retention.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no. I don't notice water retention. I don't believe that's really attributed to estradiol. I believe that when you're on a test base, the same conditions that would cause you to have high estradiol would also cause you to have water retention. But I don't think it's actually 1-to-1, considering I can actually just inject actual estradiol and watch what happens.
So you don't notice when you take the exogenous estradiol, you don't notice increased water retention?
No.
So maybe people are misattributing the water retention to like renin-aldosterone or something.
I think so. And there's for sure things we don't know there too. Maybe somebody does, but.
Well, I
Yeah.
think a lot of it too is that people have this idea that we figured it all out. So, like a common response to your protocol would be, well, obviously these pros that are super huge, they have low SHBGs and they're fine. But I think what people don't pay enough credence to is genetic variance.
Yep.
And I've noticed that myself trying different stuff. Like, dude, there's just a massive difference in how people respond to like attacking different pathways, right? Like, maybe somebody gets really good results out of just hammering androgens and the androgen receptor. And then maybe because of like your phenotype or whatever, you get better response out of, increasing SHBG. Maybe for some people it wouldn't do anything, but I think people really don't pay enough attention to things being individual. But you can see with anecdotal reports online of the effects of different drugs that there's only two options. Like either everybody's getting a different drug because it's like, a Chinese bathtub chemical that you order on the internet and you don't know what it is, or there's just different responses because there's people that can run 2-to-1 primo to test, and then there's people that have to run 2-to-1 test to primo for the same result. So if there's that much variation between the response to anabolics, then surely there's little other variations too in the responses, to like the pathways we're attacking, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with lifting. Like some people respond better to more volume, some people to less volume, high frequency, low frequency. And that's why there's no one size fits all approach to training, which is my training philosophy. Like I customize every workout for each individual based on how their body responds. Like I don't have a dogmatic approach to anything where I think everybody needs to do high volume. Everyone needs to do Mike Mentzer, high intensity. But there's just these like two camps. And it's like, hey, maybe some people respond better to this and some people respond better to that because of like differences in your genes, differences in your body.
Yep. This is the time where I say I've been on a quest that I started this to say, please prove me wrong, actually, because I'm curious, because this all started with, we were going with this. I've been told by people I have one of the most extreme transformations in muscle mass on the entire internet. And to your point, and thank you. And to your point about, I have like a reel that's going around of me saying, when you're in 2025 and you look at the top 50 mass monsters in the world, their SHBG is probably below 5, or at least below 10. I said it more eloquently than that, I remember. But my point is, SHBG perfection clearly isn't required to get freaking huge. But that said, more optimization helps you get there faster. And I gained levels of mass that, everybody rolls their eyes and says is impossible. Like, oh God, like at first it was just like, it's only been a year, that's like fluff weight. But then at a certain point, you can't really take it to fluff weight. It's not fluff weight anymore when you've done multiple contest prep diet cycles down to shredded glutes and the weight, it's still there. It's like, what about that is fake? If you can bring it on a stage.
It's so silly to say that, well, these big people, got this result so that's PG because they don't have it. It's just like anything else. Like, dude, those big guys are going to be big guys no matter what. Like Ronnie Coleman would be Ronnie Coleman, and 90% of Ronnie Coleman if he did P90X.
Yeah.
And it's just they think that everything's a one size fits all, and it's not.
Yeah. And also when you just look at the numbers, like I think there's something to say that why is mine one of the most significant transformations on the internet? Like 123 pounds lean, like going from with abs to with abs, but with veins on top in 3 years and a few months. 3 years and a few months gaining 123 pounds. That's not really, nobody's heard of that. Like, yeah, I get, there's this trope that like you can gain 10 pounds of muscle if you're lucky, once you're an established lifter. But at a certain point, when you're growing from a 220 pounds lean to a 250 pounds lean guy, like at 5'10", like 250 pounds shredded at 5'10" is kind of like, that's big by anybody's perspective. And that isn't, I wouldn't compete at that weight. I'm not stage ready at that. Like that's me in building mass mode, at 250. Yeah, I have abs, but like, I don't know, it's not contest shape or anything like that. That's not what I mean to imply.
Sure.
But like, I got six pack and I got veins on my abs. I'm pretty lean. I'm not a fatty. I don't look like a power lifter at that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think, dude, I honestly think the reason that I'm so interested in this and the reason I want to put a video up about this is because I think that this is going to be one of the next big things. Because there are a lot of people who
I think so.
There are a lot of people who take a lot of androgens, a lot of drugs that don't even look like they lift weights really, or there's people that take 250 milligrams of test and they blow up and gain 50 pounds of muscle, and then there are people that take a gram and nothing happens. And the normal, like the layman's explanation for that would be, well, they didn't eat enough food or they didn't train right or this and that. But I don't think it's that. It doesn't seem to be that, because there are people who really don't train that hard, really don't eat right, and they still grow or they still get lean. And then there are people who do the opposite and they don't get that result. And you even see that with people who are naturally skinny and eat a bunch of food and have a high metabolism and stay lean, stay skinny. And then there are people who look at a piece of cake and they get fat. So right. I think people just, maybe it's a cultural thing because we don't want to admit that people are different, humans are different. And we want to, everybody's a blank slate. Everybody has the same opportunity. So then we then apply that thought process to this stuff of well, everybody can repeat the same process and get to the same place if they work hard enough. But it's just not true. There's obviously massive genetic differences between people.
Right.
And that's going to also be, that's also going to be with regards to how you respond to different drugs or different, optimizing different hormones.
Yeah. And one of the things that is for sure true, but I will say one of the pushbacks I get is or I used to get, I don't really get it like that now, but because people say I'm pretty much open and I'm looking to disprove my own theory. If when talking to me, you can see that that's why I am where I am, is because I want to know myself. I've taken massive doses and grown, and I've taken massive doses and literally measured actual, according to data, bicep measurement, neck measurement, quad insert measurement, scale weight, everything. It's all tracked. You can see the difference, and it's statistically significant. I know, what fuck who's not working for somebody who's doing that, but that's my idea of fun, I guess. People are yeah, of course, on 3 grams, of course you're going to be big. Really? Because a lot of people do that and they don't gain 123 pounds in 3 years. Yeah, they have an impressive one-off blow up, going from 160 to 190 pounds looks different,
Yeah. So do you have clients or testimonials of people who were on a bunch of tests or something and weren't growing, and then you put them on this and they had a similar experience to yours, a transformation?
I have 15-year competitor vets who have never been above 208 pounds be over into the 240s within months, of an off season.
So with that guy, what do you have him on?
He's been on his own thing. He's been trying different stuff. He was doing nandrolone and estradiol first, then primo and nandrolone plus estradiol. And then I think he did a little bit of tren in there at some point.
Which one has he gotten the most growth out of?
I haven't kept in contact with him enough to really know. He wasn't a paid client, actually. He was just some guy who reached out to me, and, we kind of began talking, and he reached out to me because he saw one of my other videos of me talking about this and wanted to try it.
So in your experience, which has been the most powerful combination, or which one suppresses SHBG the least or produces the best result from what you've seen?
I have to go with nandrolone plus estradiol because it's the most tried and true. I'm only one person. I actually changed my answer, but there's actually no easy answer. It would be dihydroboldenone plus estradiol, actually.
Nice.
But the caveat is,
good news for me.
Yeah. DHB is amazing. And I've got so much stuff I got to put out there, but I have data I think, people will be pretty convinced by or find interesting. I shouldn't say convinced. That's not what I mean. But it is interesting to me, anyways. That seems like I figured out why people say DHB is toxic. It has these liver issues and stuff. Because when using DHB, I was able to induce those states in myself. I got a 12 CRP. I had a GGT of 60 or something. And then with that same DHB used another way, I watched as it trended downward to the lowest it had ever been over the next 5 months.
And was that do you think the concentration of the drug in solution?
I do. That was the variable I controlled there. Yep.
Yeah, because I see a lot of people, they'll be like, well, it's the glycol or it's the, whatever it's cut with, because it doesn't hold well in solution. So they say, well, you have to use more, benzyl alcohol or whatever, benzyl benzoate.
Yeah.
But in your opinion, it's more the concentration.
Right. Just like, because those glycol and stuff, I wouldn't use those. I don't actually know a ton about it, but I've heard bad things. And other people take other stuff with it and they're okay. But for some reason, DHB does it. So the reason is, think about testosterone and M8 500 or like super test 500. Like those are known to cause people test flu. Like that's where the test flu comes from.
It's crashing in the muscle?
It is that, or it's irritating the tissue some other way because it's too concentrated. Because, people tolerate testosterone fine, but not at 500. It's basically.
So why then does DHB isn't tolerated well at like 100?
Because its chemical structure is so that, like, this is not my wheelhouse at all, but like cypionate is a very lipophilic, attracted to fat molecule, but the boldenone itself is not as much. And I think that creates like it to be a state of amphiphilicity, and like that can cause weird concentration gradients along the muscle depots. So it's like, that's just the best way I understand it, which is not complete. So like, say you inject your delt, the outside of it like has a way of drawing a higher concentration there. It's technical stuff having to do with chemistry at that point. But basically it's just less suited to being as concentrated. So instead of happening at 500 milligrams like test, it happens at only 100. But the good thing about DHB is it's 3 to 4 times more potent than test. So it's like, even if you're injecting 80 mg per ml or 50 milligrams per ml DHB, it's like almost, you can think of it as like 200 milligrams per ml, because DHB is ultra potent milligram per milligram, sort of how ment is.
Right. Okay. So let's say that, like I'm trying to figure out like who would want to run the SHBG protocol. So let's say that I came to you and I've been on, TRT for, 5 years, and I've ran a bunch of cycles, and I just feel like, no matter what, no matter how high I push my doses with a test base and with other androgens, I just don't seem to be growing at all, even when I'm, throwing GH, insulin in the mix or whatever. Diet's controlled, training's good. What would you say to me? Would you say, hey, you might be a good candidate for this? And I know that like all this is experimental for you and you can't tell somebody if it's right for them or not. But like if somebody was curious about it, what would you say? Like, hey, like how would you guide someone to potentially seeing if this is for them?
I mean, there's no immediate disqualifying thing that I can think of, really, because I haven't run into it yet. It's like anybody who wants the same things they would get from a regular cycle would get this from what I'm doing.
But a good use case for this would be if you've been running, DHB derivatives. Especially,
so I've had people come to me who were like outlier cases, who were like messed up, who went through the gamut of like seeing people who are watching this, like you probably know their names. Like they're some of the biggest or the biggest in the space. And, after repeat consults with them, even they weren't able to be cured of whatever it is they were experiencing, which in this case was aromatase inhibitor, like excessive use that they never recovered from. Even after their estrogen went back to normal, they weren't able to get an erection for a year and a half. Literally not voluntary, not morning, nocturnal, nothing. And then after seeing all these people, they came to me, and in 3 weeks, I don't even think 3, it was probably 2, were, waking up with morning wood again for the first time ever. It's like a reset or something. I have no idea. But like,
now, did they
aside
actually
from the
also start
pathway,
making? Did they start making more progress in their training too?
in the case of one, because the other one doesn't lift really. So
Okay.
the other one's
The
just
guy,
taking
the guy
it.
who does, he noticed all of those, like, sex drive benefits and mental benefits, but then also started growing again.
Yes. And it's not even just benefits for him. Like, it literally gave him his life back, and he would tell you that himself.
Yeah,
Or he does tell me that.
Told me about that.
Yeah. So he went from being basically, wanting to make the final decision to, now he's happy. He has a great career and he's in a relationship,
Oh yeah, well, that's why we do this stuff in the end, man. That's why we do coaching, right? Like, what I always tell guys about my program is, it's like the fitness and the workouts and stuff. That's the vehicle. The body composition changes. The health benefits. That's the skin, right? That's like the what you see on the surface, but all the other benefits are really why we do it.
Yeah. And yeah, it feels good. It's awesome to hear that. Like, and I don't even want to like delude the audience into say that's why I do it. Like, I like, it's nice to hear that. Like, I'm happy. I truly am really happy for people, actually. But the reason why I do it is because I love to tinker with shit and do experiments and all that. So
your mindset is very much
first.
Your mindset is very much like you're in the trenches doing it, not so much like I'm the expert taking clients on and putting them through this, which we'll work on that. Your mindset shift into being more of an expert and a coach, because I think that it's time for you to become a coach for this stuff, dude.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and to the thing about I could advertise with that and be like, I took 2 of people who were clients of, and I helped them and they couldn't. The only point I brought that up for wasn't to like brag, but I meant they weren't seeing idiots, and it's not like they could have just been helped any other way. Like, they had what people think of the best helping them, and it's basically that any traditional way that's known wasn't able to help them, and this was the only thing that was.
So how certain are you that it's the SHBG that's doing it?
In their case, I have no idea. Like, possibly, I don't know. It's confusing.
I just mean with the whole protocol. Like, what I'm saying is, like, the thing you correlated with the progress, or with the the better emotional state or whatever. Like, the thing you've correlated with it has been the SHBG.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
But we don't have proof that it's not actually something else, and it just also happens to be that SHBG is also going up.
Well, I have kind of tested that. I shouldn't undersell it. I have tested that. Like, I am able to do estradiol plus blank, estradiol plus blank, estradiol plus blank. Not every estradiol plus blank combination results in in an elevated SHBG.
And when it doesn't, those people don't get that effect.
Right. When it does result in the higher SHBG, you get.
So you isolated that variable.
Yeah. That's why I said 3.5 years I've been doing it, because there's so much stuff you got to like work through systematically to like do good experiments, So
somebody wants to get on there. What are the top, say, 3 androgens that work really well for this protocol?
Nandrolone, DHB, and Primo, and
you wouldn't think Primo, because everybody thinks of Primo as like a DHT derivative, and they think of it like, I mean, even DHB, right? It's dihydroboldenone. So people, I mean, they get an androgenic effect out of it. So you would assume that it would like increase DHT or bind SHBG in the same way that at the same rate that DHT does, but it doesn't.
No, they don't. Primo plus the testosterone base is notorious for lowering SHBG quite a bit, actually.
And is that the combination, or is it the testosterone?
It seems to be only when it's with testosterone that it happens. So, yeah.
So what if somebody were to take testosterone and then a bunch of like dutasteride and have zero DHT, do you think then they would also increase their SHBG from the test?
They would. Yeah, you do see it actually, but I don't recommend people do that because dutasteride has other nasty effects to it as well.
Well, that brings up a good point then, because somebody else, and another objection might be to this that if you don't have any DHT in your system, then how are you getting, androgenicity? How are you getting erections, and how are you getting strength and all the things that we classically attribute to DHT itself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because DHT has no special receptor. Its function is binding to the androgen receptor, just like testosterone, just like dihydroboldenone, just like Primo. The reason why finasteride and dutasteride, these DHT lowering drugs, are causing people to be impotent and get post-finasteride syndrome, it's not because of the lower DHT. It's because 5-alpha reductase has so many other known and probably unknown things that it does in the body with neurochemistry and all that stuff. We know 5-alpha reductase is needed to produce allopregnanolone, which is like more is being learned about that. Allopregnanolone is medically approved for postpartum depression. So clearly it's got some role that's significant enough there. And, it just seems to make sense.
Neurosteroids for a second.
Yeah.
Do you have, or do you recommend, or do you use DHEA pregnenolone, like orally?
I do. I'm not dogmatic about anything, though. I have heard people tell me I don't get shit from that. But I personally think I do. Like, I've taken it out before, and I noticed when I add it in. Yeah, so I do take DHEA and pregnenolone.
How much do you use of those, just personally?
50 or 100. It's kind of arbitrary. I haven't really worked to isolate.
50 or 100 DHEA?
Yeah.
And how much pregnenolone?
The same.
Oh.
Yeah. I haven't really dialed in the dose.
I haven't really taken more than like 10 of pregnenolone or 25 of DHEA, but I've had those measured, like DHEA sulfate and pregnenolone, and my levels are kind of just middle of the range. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't noticed any difference in taking them. I mean, I'll see now that I'm doing this SHBG protocol. I'll see like what my neurosteroids look like, but I'm also a little bit different though than maybe some of your other clients, because I'm taking HCG as well. So I don't know if that's going to be a detriment to the protocol or what. I have
taken it while on HCG. Like, I have used HCG while on an estradiol base plus X or whatever. But I didn't do a carefully modulated SHBG lab draw at that time to measure just the effect that the HCG had.
Like, when I was on like 250 test and 250 units of HCG twice a week, my estradiol was like 56, and then my SHBG I think was 24. So it was good. But now that I'm on this protocol, that I'm giving this a shot, obviously I took the test out. But dude, I feel amazing. Like, we were just talking about it before we got on here, but yeah, awesome. Dude, I definitely like mentally feel very similar to when I first got on test.
That's fucking awesome to hear it, then. Fuck yeah. To the DHT thing, like, I have experimented with that too. Like, after being completely DHT deprived, because my total testosterone was 23 nanograms per deciliter with a sensitive assay every time I tested it, my test was bottomed out. So I'm assuming my DHT wasn't high. Whenever I would add test back in or add injectable DHT base, like, I mean, not like, yeah, Primo, that's a DHT. No, I mean, like, literally I injected dihydrotestosterone. I used dihydrotestosterone cream, or I added test back into the stack. I can't personally tell a difference between when DHT is present versus when it's not, and neither can at least 3 or 4 other people who I've worked with closely.
I don't feel any different. Well, I mean, I feel better. Like, I don't.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I feel better.
Dude, I was a fucking high DHT converter too, because when I was even on 140 milligrams of test a week, my DHT was twice the reference range.
Wow.
So, which I don't know if that must just be a genetic anomaly or something, but
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I'm bald and stuff, so there's an effect there. But yeah, my DHT was just out of control, but I don't feel any different not having it in my system. Yeah, my gym aggression is good. Like my sex drive's fine. Like my mood is fine. My drive is great. I don't notice a fucking difference. And I guess it makes sense. Like DHT essentially will have the same effect mentally as just regular old anabolics.
If the dose is high enough, yeah. So it's like maybe for a natural guy with like 500 to 600 nanogram per deciliter total, maybe that's not enough just testosterone on its own to get maxed out drive, maxed out libido. Like maybe the ultra potent DHT is important in that context. But once the towel is already saturated with water, like you can't saturate it anymore. Like,
sure.
You know, it's kind of like that analogy. So if you're on, you know, 500, 200 milligrams, 500 milligrams DHB, it's like all the receptors that are going to matter for like feeling adrenergic or feeling the effect of the androgens are already saturated.
Okay, so let's say that I wanted to run this protocol. Like, what would you recommend? Like the steps would be like, you know, what would be step one, dude? If I was interested in doing this and I thought I was a good candidate for it, not that we're giving out advice because we're not doctors, we're just muscle head morons,
right?
But let's just say I was doing it. Like, what if you were me? What would you? How would you approach this? Like, what would you do?
Step one is find the dose of estradiol that you need. Because I've seen between 18 to 65 picograms per milliliter from 1 milligram of estradiol per week.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, it's consistent. Like I know mine always falls between, it's actually closer to 19, between 19 and 20. So I know 1 milligram a week is going to give me an extra 20. 2 milligrams a week, I'm going to be at 40, you know, and etc. And it's very consistent. So make it to that week 3 or 4 point when you are at steady state estrogen levels, get your level checked, and then you know going forward how to adjust your estradiol to whatever you want it to be.
Okay, so that's step one. So figure out where your estradiol is at. And to do that, obviously you have to have nothing else aromatizing in your system.
Yeah.
So you have to have already cut out tests. So maybe you have to start out by, you know, kind of, I guess, getting like a baseline of dose of estradiol, like maybe a milligram or something, while running the, you know, the nandrolone or the DHB or the Primo, whatever it is. Wait for the testosterone to get out of your system.
Yeah.
Go get your labs at the trough level and then see where you're at.
Right. I would just start the estradiol. It can depend on people in different situations, but you could start like, let's say you're going to do DHB and E2. You cut the test and whatever else, start the DHB, start the E2. I actually recommend you start at 0.5 milligram though per week, because you can always, if you're a little low for 4 weeks, it's not as bad for some people as like, let's say you way overshoot it, you know. It's up to you, but I would say 0.5 to make it simple, and then see what 0.5 milligram estradiol per week gives you on blood levels.
Now, do you think the amount of E2 needs to be balanced with the amount of androgen?
I would love to know more and explore more on it. I'm not really sure, but like I said, 65 is good for me.
What did I say mine was? Because I've been doing 1 milligram of estradiol, and I think it came back as like 30 on the dot.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep. I do remember.
Which I feel like is a little low for me because again, when my SHBG, so my SHBG on 30 with 30 estradiol was only 11, but when my SHBG was 24, my estradiol was like in the mid 50s. So it might be a good idea for me to bump my E2 dose up to like 1.5 milligrams a week and see what that looks like.
Yeah. More estradiol will result in a higher SHBG, but that's not the main lifter. Like what's raising SHBG here? Like, yes, having a higher E2.
It's the lack of suppression.
Right. Correct. Exactly.
I just thought it's so drastic. Okay. Cause like 55 estradiol versus a 30 is only a difference of, 25, right? Or 24. So, but the SHBG was cut in half.
Oh, wow.
Right. So, and obviously, like, your body's dynamic. It's never going to be an exact, like,
What
ratio.
caused the estradiol to be lower?
Well, because I got off okay. So when I was on 250 test and then 250 units of HCG 3 times a week and no AI, my estradiol was about 55 and my SHBG was 24. When I started this protocol and I started using, well, it was Nandrolone, but when I started the protocol and I was doing 1 milligram of E2, my E2 level is now 30, which means I might need a little bit more, of the injectable E2.
Yeah.
Back to that, range, right? And I felt good. Like when my estradiol is like 50 or 60, like I feel pretty good there.
Yeah.
I don't know what my IGF-1 looks like because I'm going to get that tested. But I don't know what it looks like on that level of estrogen. But I'll tell you what, man, like I know when my estrogen's too low, and it's a terrible, anybody who knows like crashed estrogen, it's a terrible feeling. And I wouldn't say I feel terrible at 30, but that could have also accounted for some of the brain fog I was experiencing on the Nandrolone. Maybe I just wasn't taking enough estrogen.
Possibly. And especially if you have estrogen lowered like acutely, you can eventually adjust to that 30. But let's say you dropped from 60 to 30 in like a week, you can be responding just to that rapid shift.
Sure.
And like maybe it's not that 30 is too low for you necessarily. It's just you need a couple weeks there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I need to go get retested, and I'll probably do that on Monday. And then depending on what it looks like, crank up the E2 a little bit. But yeah, so far so good, dude. Like pumps are great. I feel great. And no post-injection pain from the DHB like people talk about. I feel good. I don't feel inflamed, although a lot of people say it took them like 6 or 8 weeks to feel that way. So we'll see. But I'm going to keep checking CRP. I'll keep checking GGT and see what the numbers look like. And so long as everything's, not crazy and it's manageable, then I'll just keep rolling with it. What have you seen with Trenbolone with this protocol?
I need to do better tests. I just need to. I think it's going to be good, but I need to do better tests. That's my immediate goal.
What ones have you tested that aren't good?
Boldenone, unfortunately.
Interesting.
So this is where it gets complicated. 2,500 milligrams of Primo, like it's not as SHBG suppressive as tests and like it would be the standard cycle. But at 2,500 milligrams, it still lowered me from like a 10 to a 8, and the reason my SHBG is always so low like that is because my goal isn't have maximum SHBG right now. It's run the gamut and test which ones do and which ones don't lower.
What about people that say that growth hormone lowers SHBG?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't tested it. Right? Yeah, I do, but I haven't.
I think they say insulin lowers it too, allegedly.
Yeah. Yep. I haven't.
You run both of those, and you've had.
Yeah,
no issue.
I'm able to raise my SHBG while on 14 plus IU/GH, and
so maybe it's not
say how much
as you are, going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it's like maybe it would be a little higher without them. I don't know, but those are also things that are helping me get huge. So
so it's a trade-off,
right? Like I wanted my SHBG as high as I can have it without having to, do sacrifices. Because there's other things that raise SHBG like keto or carnivore or taking SERMs, but SERMs crush your IGF-1. Yeah, so you're shooting yourself in the foot one way. This is the only way I know of that I've ever found that doesn't shoot you in the foot and seems to not have any trade-offs.
Yeah. Well, man, let's yeah. So I guess just to review, you started out, you were on test, you had good results, your estradiol was on the lower end and you wanted to increase it. So you started using injectable estradiol. And then when you took the testosterone out and it was just the estrogen and the Nandrolone, your SHBG shot up and you got these massive newbie gains. And so now this is essentially the road you've been going down the last few years, kind of discovering that, hey, maybe there is another pathway to growth that some people would really benefit from.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
And
and
again,
I like it so far too, man. I mean, it's too early for me to tell about gains and stuff like that, but I feel like I'm growing. It's been a couple weeks, so it's hard to tell what's like nitrogen retention or whatever, and what's actual growth. But dude, so far so good.
I'm so excited because like I've been talking with you and like other people even also about this for a long time, and now people are trying it. It's like there's been so much anticipation built up, you know. It's
Yeah,
like I
and
can't wait.
I'm very adamant about. I'm really good about the blood work too, man. Like I'll go in there every week and get it done if it means like better tracking. So yeah, I'll keep sending my labs and we'll keep dialing it in, dude. But yeah, so far it's freaking crushing it, dude. So I'm gonna keep it up.
Cool. I'm
So,
excited. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this with me, man. I appreciate it. I'll throw this
Yeah.
up
Thanks.
hopefully by the end of the day, and I'll shoot you a link over to it. And yeah, we'll get it out there.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Cool, man. Talk to you later.
All right. See ya.